The first thing you should always do is just take stock. Identify your conclusion and read through your premises and start looking for patterns. For example, notice that our conclusion is a disjunction. Well, there's going to be more than one way to derive a disjunction. The two main ways are going to be add or constructive dilemma. If we use add, then if we can derive either E or G and Z, then we'll be done with our proof. Now, if it turns out that it is CD that we're using, then what we'll be looking for is some conditional that has E on the tail end and something in front, and also another conditional with G and Z on the tail end and something else in front. And now for constructive dilemma, we need one more ingredient, and that's going to be the disjunction with the antecedents of the conditionals. Scanning through our premises, one of the first things that you should notice is that you've got a conjunction at line 4. As a good general tactic to keep in mind is to always simp out your conjunctions. Now, you won't always have to do this, and you definitely don't always use both of the resulting conjuncts, but what this tactic does is that it always gives you a few more ingredients to use. And here, one of the things that we see is that this opens the door to maybe a modus ponens derivation. Not I occurs as the antecedent of premise 1. And additionally, not I is the negation of this left-hand disjunct, which means that we might be able to use DS productively on lines 3 and not I. Other things to notice, even if they don't generate specific patterns or rules at the moment, is the repetition here. B or D shows up as the antecedent of the conditional at line 2 and as the right-hand disjunct of the disjunction in line 3. There's no rule that lets us do anything with that right now, but it can be helpful to see these kinds of repetitions in case there's something that we can do later on. Now, the reason why you should always take stock like this is because the notes that result from your stock taking can help provide you with guidelines or even directly give you subsequent lines in your proof. For example, here, we might as well just start by simp on line 4. And for that matter, we might as well also use modus ponens on line 1 and the line that contains not I by itself, which is line 5. And when we do that, we'll be deriving the consequent of the conditional at line 1. And we had also thought that we could use DS on line 3 and the line containing not I. DS on line 3 allows us to derive the remaining disjunct. Now at this point we've basically run out of initial observations and we don't quite have anything that we were hoping to be able to derive. So at this point, the next step is to take stock again. In particular, we noticed before that B or D occurs in lines 2 and 3. Well, we've got B or D on a line by itself now. That doesn't help us with line 3, but it does help us with line 2. B or D is the antecedent of this conditional, and so that's going to allow us to derive this sentence at line 9 using modus ponens on lines 2 and 8. And now what? Well, again, kind of take stock. You know to look for the CD pattern. you know to look for a conditional with E at the end of it. You know to look for another conditional with G and Z at the end of it. And you know to look for a disjunction with those antecedents as disjuncts. And what that means is that we're in a position to derive our conclusion using CD on lines 6, 7, and 9. And we're done.